another top tip, when you start up After Effects, make sure you save your project straight away. Because if you don't save your project and your computer crashes, you will not have any files. So if you save it straight away when you open it, at least that way it kicks in the autosave function and you will not be pulling out your hair later on down the line. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on what area you're from. My name is Aaron Sinclair and welcome to the Media Moguls. Today I'm going to be showing you my workflow when it comes to creating graphics from scratch. I know there's a lot of templates and morgue files around, but sometimes you got to do it yourself. Stay tuned. So today we're going to do something fun. We're going to do something completely different. I've got my laptop out and I'm going to be showing you my workflow when it comes to making graphics. In today's day and age, making graphics is very essential because everyone needs a title. So throughout my career, I've had to make titles for lots of different companies and I use very simple techniques, but then I modify them to make them advanced. So what I want to do today is teach you these techniques so you can then modify them and then incorporate it into your work. The main programs I'm going to be using today is Adobe Illustrator and After Effects. These are the two main things that I've learned and I find is the easiest way to make titles. Illustrator for literally designing my titles and After Effects for making them dance, as we say. So let's jump straight into it. So I've already opened Illustrator, so we're going to start off with making a 1080p project. So as we see, we already got a preset here, but if you don't have that, we can do new file, and then we can literally just make sure that it's set to pixels. We're gonna do 1920 by 1080. So that is the basic resolution for 1080p. I could do this in 4K, which is 3840 by 2160, but the good thing with using Illustrator is you can always scale up because everything is vectors. So when we go into Illustrator, we've got our blank canvas, which you would normally see. So today, let's make a Media Moguls logo because there isn't one. Just a quick side note, today I'm doing this on my Mac because my PC screen is too big. All of these tips and tools will translate over to Windows PC, so do not be scared, but a lot of the modifier keys will be different. So I will put a graphic up now just to convert what everything is so you can use it going forward. The first thing I will do is press the T key to change my cursor into the typing tool, and I'm just gonna write Media Moguls. So another key thing here is to make sure that your spelling is correct. Once we go deeper into the timeline and to the process, if your spelling is wrong, you're gonna have to start all over again. So always make sure your spellings are correct. So once we've got that, I'm just gonna scale it up. I'm holding the Shift key to make sure that it stays. See, once again, I've spelled it wrong. So let's change that. Moguls, like I said, make sure it's spelled right. I'm gonna change the font to Gotham because we love a Gotham. So we got Gotham bold. So here we have a full size graphic. So the next thing we would do, we'd like to design our graphic. So what I would do going forward, I would create outlines. So right click, create outlines, and then I also right click, and then I will ungroup. This allows me to be able to select each individual element and do what I need to do with it. What I'm gonna do is have them underneath each other. So we have media on the top, just gonna scale media big, and we're gonna have moguls at the bottom. And we're just gonna do some formatting just to make sure it looks all cool. So I'm just gonna scale it down a little bit, just so I have space to kind of play with when I'm editing it in After Effects. And then what we're gonna do next, we're just gonna change the color to purple. And this will be the basic premises of our graphic. Nice and clean. You can do more things. If you wanted to, you could select one of the elements and hold Shift and scale it up. And then we could scale that up also. But it literally just depends on what you want to do. But I'm just going to keep it very simple for this tutorial. So the next step would be to open up the layers panel. If your layers panel isn't on the side or you don't see this here, you can go Windows and then you select layers and then that will bring it up. So as you can see, all of my layers are here. We have the media, M-E-D-I-A, and moguls, M-O-G-U-L-S. We don't need this at the bottom, so we're just gonna delete that because I don't know what that is. So the next thing you wanna do is we need to break these layers into sequence. So to do this, you need to click the top layer, which is layer 1, click on the hamburger logo or button. I don't know why it's called a hamburger button, but I've heard it and we're gonna adopt it. And then you go release to layers sequence. Very important is sequence and not build. What this then does is put each of them on its own layer, which you can then select, drag to the bottom, and that pulls everything into its own layer. Then we can get rid of layer 1 because layer 1 is not needed. So this is pretty much the premises of getting your graphics together. We don't need to do anything else. You can continue to modify them if you need to, but for this example, we're just gonna keep it there. Another one I wanna show you quickly is using the libraries. We're not gonna use libraries today because it's not gonna have the same effects, but if you wanted to import this into Premiere or even to After Effects as an asset, you can select everything, go to your libraries window, but if your libraries window isn't there, you can click on window and go to libraries. This then gives you this box on the side. As you see, I have different projects here already. So I've already created a Media Moguls folder. We'll click on that. You just select whatever element you want and you just drag it in there, and that will become available in any of the other programs like After Effects, Premiere Pro, ECT. Or even if you wanted just one certain asset from it, you can drag that in and you've got that. But the only problem with what this does with what we're doing today, it loses the formatting and it also makes it one element, and we need them to be separate. So if we save that now, as you do, file and save, and we're just gonna save it on the desktop as Media Moguls. So the second step now would be to jump into After Effects. And what we're gonna do, we're gonna import what we've just saved. So we're gonna create a new project, go to Composition, New, and we're gonna make a 1080p project, which is 25 frames. You can do more frames, which will make the animation smoother, but for instructional services, we're just gonna stick with a basic 1080p. Plus, I don't want my computer to explode and start making lots of noise today. Then another top tip, when you start up After Effects, make sure you save your project straight away. Because if you don't save your project and your computer crashes, you will not have any files. So if you save it straight away when you open it, at least that way it kicks in the autosave function and you will not be pulling out your hair later on down the line. So I'm just gonna save it and we're just gonna call it Media Moguls GFX. So the first thing we wanna do is import what we have already made. So I'm just gonna go to the desktop and I'm gonna drag that into my project. So when you're importing your AI, you will see this box, it says import kind. You want it to say composition and not footage, because if it says footage, it's gonna lose all of the attributes and we need those. So make sure it's set to composition, and then footage dimension, just make sure that says layer size, because once again, if you change that to document size, it's just gonna mess up everything and you don't want that. So once that's all fine, we press OK. We can then see it's been imported. So we're gonna double click on that to open it. And as you can see, we have gotten our Media Moguls graphic. So the first thing I like to do when I'm doing something like this is to keyframe all of my layers. So first of all, I'm gonna press Control and A, that's gonna select everything. I'm gonna press P, which opens up the position attributes, and I'm just gonna click the stopwatch. That then adds our first keyframe. Just make sure it's on the first frame. What I then like to do next is go forward, let's say 10 frames. So I'm gonna hold Command and hold the forward key 10 times. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then I click the keyframe button again. That then gives me 2 distinct keyframes that I can start off with. So now what I can do, I can move any of these assets anywhere and it's gonna animate automatically. So if we just start dragging everything all over, dragging things all over. So let's make it kind of like they're coming in from different sides or different places. And then when we press play, we see everything comes together. So that is already a simple animation that you can use. So let's take that one step further. If I zoom into my timeline a little bit by pressing the plus key and then move each frame every 5 frames, we'll then introduce a bit more of organization into our animation. So I'm just gonna do this quickly. And this is what we now get. So already that's a nice little animation that you can use. Very simple, it's only taken me maybe 5 minutes to do. And that is the basic premises of a lot of graphics that I do. It's just keyframes and move things around. I know I'm making it sound very simple, but it really is that simple. So let's take this one step further and introduce expressions. So I'm gonna undo all of the stuff that I've done already, and we're gonna do another animation just for example's sake. So for this example, we're gonna use exactly the same premises and the same keyframes, but we're just gonna change how everything comes in. So now we're gonna do a sliding of each word so they come in individually. So same thing again, we're gonna do exactly the same thing. We have the same frames, the same keyframes, but we're gonna make them slide in this time. We're gonna slide all the assets out. So the M, the E, the D, the I, and the A. And I'm holding the shift key to make sure that they all move in the same plane and they don't move in the vertical plane. So just move all of those out so they're off screen. and then we press play, but that doesn't look that great. Although that could be an effect, it doesn't look that great. So it's the same thing again. If we move each of these assets in time, so let's do every 5 frames, and then we get this. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna go one step further, and I'm gonna introduce you to something called expressions. An expression is basically like a code that tells After Effects how to behave. So if we go into Google and type in After Effects expressions, and you can see the best 10 After Effects expressions. And what we want to find is the inertia bounce, which is here, the bounce expression. As you can see from this website, it's showing you exactly what's going to happen. It's going to bounce and then it's slowly going to stop. As you can see, we've got the amplitude, we've got the frequency and the decay. A lot of the time, all I change is the decay. I might play around the frequency, but you just got to mess around with it yourself and see what works for you. So we're just going to copy that, bring that into After Effects, and we're just going to apply it to each position keyframe. So to do this, you want to hold the Option key and click, which then brings up the expression editor, and we just paste that in. But what I'm going to do, I'm just going to change the decay on this to 5, because I know that having that 2 is going to be very elastic, and I don't really want it to be that elastic. So I'm just going to copy that new expression now, and I'm just going to add that into each of these. So now that it's done, you then get this. As you see, it's added a little bit of a bounce to it. It makes it feel a bit more organic, and it's just very simple. You can add this to anything. You can add it to text, you can add it to videos, any layer within After Effects you can add this to. There's a lot of other expressions. I would say to go and have a look at them and see what there is, but I just wanted to show you just the most basic of expressions. My final tip for making graphics is to add motion blur to it. This may sound like it's a hard trick, but this is the easiest thing you can do. All you need to do is make sure that the toggle switch / the mode thing at the bottom allows you to see this. If it's showing you all of this stuff, just click the mode switch and it will change to that. And you want to pay attention to this selection here. If you press Ctrl and A and select everything and click this first one, this will add motion blur to all of your layers. The only thing is that you have to make sure it's turned on. It's not turned on by default. So if you look on After Effects, you'd see this logo here. Click it, that turns on motion blur within After Effects. The reason it's off by default is because it's kind of power hungry and it does make your computer run a bit slower depending on what you have. So you then get this. So as you see, it's added a bit of sauce to it. It just makes it feel a bit more organic and it fits in with the world. So that is literally the premises of me making graphics. Nothing too complicated. You can take what I've shown you and go really wild with it. You can put a background, drop shadow, anything that you've learned within After Effects you can use and then push this forward. And one last thing I want to show you is just adding 3D to these kind of graphics. So to do this, we're going to select all of our layers and we're going to click the 3D tool. As you can see, it's now put our work in 3D space. So what I'm going to do is press the A key, which changes the anchor point, and we're just going to drag the middle number all the way up. And that's just to make sure that all of our text sit on the X axis, and when we're modifying it, it operates from the bottom and not the middle, which is the default. Unfortunately, this then brings all of my text up. So to correct this, I'm going to make something called a null object. So to make a null object, you just have to press Command, Option, Shift, and Y, a lot of keys. But if you want to do it the other way, you can press Layer, New, Null Object. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to select all of my layers, and then I'm going to use this thing here, which is called the Pick Whip, and I'm just going to drag it to the null layer. What this then allows me to do is to then operate and move my text wherever I need. So I'm just going to drag it back down, and then we're back to where our starting point is. A null layer is really cool because you can also add stuff like inertia bounce and have its own animation on top of what you've done. Top tip. So what we're going to do now is just add another animation on top. So I'm going to select all of my keyframes and we're going to press the R key. This then brings up the rotation preferences. So if I have all of them selected, if I press on the X axis rotation, put a keyframe, and we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and we're going to make another keyframe. So what we want to do is go to the first keyframe, but we're only going to select the top part, which is the media. We'll go the M, the E, the D, the I, the A, and then we're literally just going to go to where it says rotation and press minus 90 degrees, or minus 90 because we don't have to write degrees. As you see, that makes the whole text flat. We're gonna do the same again for the moguls. So the S, the L, the U, the G, the O, and the M. But this time on the X rotation, we're gonna do just 90. And that makes that also flat. But as you can see, sometimes it doesn't fully go away. So you may just have to modify it just to make sure that it's fully flat. So fully flat here is actually 85. What we've now got, if we move forward, we can see is that each of the individual assets raise up. And then if we just add another, position keyframe here, so select all again, press P. We're just gonna make another keyframe, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We're gonna make another keyframe here. When we're gonna go to the first set of keyframes, and we're just gonna drag the whole word to the left. And we're gonna do exactly the same thing with moguls, but we're gonna drag the whole word to the right this time. And then if we play that, we get this. So what I've now shown you is 2 different ways that you can make a graphic. So as I've said, I've shown you the most basic form of this. It's then down to you to add your creativity on top of it. Whether that's adding your own effects, adding tools or effects from After Effects, and then making your own style. But it's very simple to make graphics once you know all of this stuff. So the main thing to pay attention to is rotation, position, scale, and transparency. With all of those, you can do quite a lot. And then once you're more advanced, you can move into the 3D stuff like I've shown you, and you could actually play with scales and stuff. And the last thing that I'll show you is the null layer. So I said you can do a lot of stuff with the null layer, but what I'm now gonna do, I'm going to copy the inertia bounce, and I'm gonna make this graphic disappear now. So very simple, because it's already parented to everything, all I need to do is press the S key, which shows you the scale. And same thing, we're gonna hold command and go forward 10 frames, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Make another keyframe by clicking this button. We're gonna set our first keyframe, and we're gonna set the scale to 110. This is then gonna make it bounce, and then we're gonna do another one where we do another keyframe, and we're just gonna go forward 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we're gonna set that to 0, and that will be how our graphic goes out. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna add the same inertia bounce to the scale function. So we're gonna press Option, click on the expression tool, click on the keyframe tool, and we're gonna paste that in. Now, when we play, you see it's still got that same bounce, and then we bounce out. So very simple, very easy to do, and you can easily just make so many different things with this. So once again, I hope that was very insightful. Like I said, it's the very basic form. Do run with it, mess around with it, and you can make some amazing stuff. I'll show you stuff I've done with this, but a lot of my graphics do start from that, and you just build upon it and you put your own little pizzazz on it. The S from the Media Moguls intro. I haven't got all my assets on this laptop, but I'll show you. A lot of it is the same thing. So if we go into the original assets, we can see that I have made all of my stuff from Illustrator, and it's just individual elements that have come in that are rotating. So if I select all and press R, you can see the 2 keyframes. We've got a keyframe at 0, and we've got a keyframe at 4 seconds. But as you can see, it's just a load of sticks that are rotating in. And then it then forms up the S. And then if we go back to the main composition, there's a lot of things that have been added on top, like a glow, have another effect called echo, which allows the graphic to then show multiple times while rotating. But like I said, it's very simple, and the premises are very simple. And the last thing on top of that, I've got a 3D camera, but that's also going into more deeper terms. But I really just wanted to show you this just to say that it's very easy to make graphics. It's just a case of what are you thinking about, what do you want to create, and just having that distinct thought and going forward. But thank you again for watching. If that has been helpful, do make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, as we will be here week in, week out, giving you more information and more tips and tricks on how to get by it. So thank you so much for watching. My name was Aaron Sinclair, and I will catch you in the next one.